Attack on Titan is finally over. The finale hit, and after a decade long, we send that bad boy off in style.
Still moving on, still moving on. This is for my day ones. This is for my day ones.
Come on. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, because remember, I'm a manga reader, and if you don't know, I read the manga many years ago when it, well, not many years, well, kind of many, you know, a few years ago, whenever it ended. I think, what was it, 2000, 2001, a couple of years ago. I was a reader of the manga, and just like a lot of people, I did have my complaints with the manga, and this is the main incident where I'm going to start detaching myself from all of that stuff. And what I mean by that is, I am going to, from now on, reserve my reactions and ultimately look deeper into things before just immediately casting out certain aspects of how I feel about things. And what I mean by that is, when the Attack on Titan manga ended, I had a lot of vitriol for a lot of things about the ending. It felt like it betrayed homie. It felt like a lot of different things. At the same time, like, when I watched this ending of the anime, I don't feel none of what I felt with the manga. And I'm at a different space in my life, admittedly. Like, I was way too invested in anime and manga in general, bro. Like, I've gotten so far removed from being in that mindset of, like, you know, anime and manga is just everything, you know what I mean? So now I can actually look at things a little bit more objectively. I can look at things from an enjoyment aspect, from, a critical aspect, and just in general, all around, not being so absorbed in the world of anime and manga. Because if you are constantly reading anime and manga, everything is eventually going to start feeling stale to you, and it's going to be harder and harder to impress you because you're constantly entrenched in this thing. And I don't think that any medium, or anything for that matter, is it a good thing to be constantly always doing? Like, you know, eating chocolate all day long is not good for you. Doing anything. And at that particular point, when I read the Attack on Titan manga, I was reading like 15 manga at a time or whatnot. And so it was harder and harder to impress, but also I was looking at things from a mindset of somebody that is not even just average, but most people wouldn't be with the same mindset as me in terms of, I'm right after this, I gotta read Dragon Ball, I gotta read Boruto, I gotta read My Hero, I gotta read Jujutsu Kaisen, I gotta blah 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 blah. 15 manga later, okay, I gotta read all this stuff. So now I'm looking at it from a different mindset, and even more so, I feel like the anime just did it better. Supposedly there was some changes. I'll be honest with you, because I reported it on Forever News. There was some changes that was made from the manga to the anime. It wasn't significant enough for me to notice anything. That's one big thing, because there was supposed to be a big change there was supposed to be change from the manga to the anime. There was already he changed it like 2 or 3 times now, right? Which is crazy, and that shows the power of fans when everybody gets together and just starts going nuts about something. Like, homie changed the ending of Attack on Titan multiple times at this point. Via the manga, we had the original ending, then he released the extended ending in the magazine, and then he released the extended ending from the volume, and then on top of that we have now the anime changing the ending. So the fandom definitely morphed the outcome of Attack on Titan, hands down. All of the backlash and whatnot was something that helped to morph Attack on Titan's anime finale into what it ultimately became. And I'll be honest with you, man, when I finished the ending of Attack on Titan's finale, after witnessing everything that the finale brought forth, because, there was a lot to this thing, and shout outs to Studio Mappa's animators, the animators that slaved themselves, I got nothing but love for them. They did a phenomenal job aesthetically, the battles, everything about this thing. There was not a time where I was like, oh, that looks, no, everything just looked top of the line. It's an hour and a half special for the finale, the grand finale, which again, it's crazy to say because we had the finale, the final chapters, the final chapters, the final to final chapters, but we finally got the finale. There was a lot in there where I was just like, wow, this is really impactful and emotional. And I'm not necessarily trying to compare with because the main aspect and the main problem, which if you haven't watched it, I gotta, talk about it. The main aspect and the main problem that a lot of people had with the ending of Attack on Titan was the fact of Eren's character change from where he was in this finale, ever since pretty much damn near a little after the time skip, to who he is right now. He was pretty much like I'm standing on business type of dude, right? It was like, yo, I got to destroy the world to save Paradise. It is what it is. I don't care. This is what I got to do. And there were certain aspects of the finale where Eren was acting contrary to all of that, what we've seen, that people were very upset. Especially, like, one of the things that it took me out back then, and when I saw it now, I didn't necessarily feel the same way, was when Armin is talking about Mikasa and Eren just flips the script and says, I don't want her to move on from me. I want her to mourn from me. I want her to blah, 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 blah. And basically he went from like, yo, what some people say, he was a Chad, he was a man's man, till he became a simp, so to speak, for Mikasa. And again, back in the day when the manga finale had that, a lot of people were very upset with that. The anime, I haven't really seen almost next to no backlash for the ending of the Attack on Titan anime. Honestly, it's kind of been a little bit quiet now that I think about it. Like, it's just been people mourning, like, it's over, is mainly what I've seen for the Attack on Titan fandom. Nobody really having criticisms of that. And to touch up on that, honestly, it's very similar to Code Geass, in the regard of Eren's character in Attack on Titan, especially in the finale of, Lelouch. He was Lelouch through and through. He tricked a lot of people. He made everybody, also on some Itachi stuff, he made everybody look like, oh, no, I'm really this bad guy. No, I'm really with the shits, homie. And no, I don't care, bro. This one could drop, that one could drop. I don't care. And don't get me wrong, Eren was with the shits. Let's be very clear. He wiped out 80% of humanity. 80% of humanity, not 80% of his village, not 80%. He wiped out 80% of humanity. So Eren was definitely with the shits, but deep down, it's just like anybody else, man. Like, for example, if somebody's in prison, right? They did some horrific atrocities in prison, and then later on down the road, they're like a whole different person. They've repented, all sorts of stuff or whatnot. Did that part of them just appear after the fact, or was that good part in them all along? Because when you're born, right, when you're a baby, when you're born, you're good, you're a baby, there's nothing, you're innocent, right? And even as you grow, you're a kid, you're a kid, you know what I'm saying? You may be influenced by your environment, but you're a kid. You're supposed to be inherently good. I think in general, people are supposed to be inherently good. And Eren has been inherently good inside, but it was clouded by so much of, I gotta protect my people, that he did things that go against who he is, but who he is still there. The Eren that we knew from episode 1 never died. It was just we didn't understand also the complexities of future Eren sending out hits. Like, there's a lot of stuff in this finale that was just like, oh my god. Especially if you ain't read the manga, I know you was flabbergasted by some of that stuff. They definitely glazed over some stuff I wish would have been a little bit expanded on. It was expanded on in the manga, or it should have been expanded on in the manga, and it wasn't expanded on in the anime. And that's like, for example, when Eren maneuvered the Smiling Titan from going to Ebertold from the future to his past self. So he was like, there was a lot of really messed up stuff that it was kind of like, hey, well, that happened. And no, that's a very, very dark thing. You know what I'm saying? That's a very, very dark thing. Like, Eren went through some very tragic stuff. And you can only imagine the pain of what he was feeling. You know what I'm saying? Like, if this good person was in there all along and he had to be nasty to his people that he loved so much, he treated Mikasa like dirt. He treated Armin like dirt. He beat them up. He did all sorts of stuff. Then on top of that, the little thing of wiping out 80% of humanity, fighting all of his friends in general. Just imagine what Eren has been going through all this. And by no means am I trying to say like he's just this complete innocent angel or anything like that, because in all actuality, if you look at Attack on Titan for what it is and Eren's character, it is very biblical. Attack on Titan, I know maybe some people, they like, wait, what? 100% Attack on Titan is very biblical, down to certain pronunciations of stuff. Like, bro, Eren, aka the way they pronounce it, Eden, the Garden of Eden, he ends as a garden. He ends as a freaking tree in a garden. Bro, Eren is literally essentially Lucifer in Attack on Titan. That is literally what he ultimately is. And I know that's a tough thing to think about, but if you even look at it, how history is repeating itself. Essentially, somebody will go in the Garden of Eden, that tree, the Garden of Eden. They will go in there and they will be tempted with the tree of knowledge, so to speak, so on and so forth. It's biblical. Eren has basically been Lucifer, and depending on the way you look at it, that's why in real life you'll have people that worship Lucifer, you'll have people that go against it or whatnot, depending on the way you look at it. Because right now, if Eren is the embodiment of that, right? Let's just put that in your mind for a second. That's what Eren is ultimately embodying. Well, then there's people that sympathize and say, yo, but he did everything he possibly could to save his people. He did this all out of love. You know what I'm saying? But then there's going to be some people that are like, yo, bro, he was like on some Nazi shit. What are you talking about, bro? He wiped out 80% of humanity, dog. How you even going to try to put some shit? And that's literally how people, you know what I'm saying? People that go against and for Lucifer. That's literally, Eren Yeager is a biblical, or inspired by biblical aspects of Lucifer, the tree of knowledge, the Garden of Eden. Very fascinating thing to think about, but there's so many different comparisons you could put. You could put that Aaron is somewhat loosely inspired, although very, very different than from what we've heard, or I don't want to say very different because we don't know everything, but significantly different from like an Adolf Hitler type of situation. There's a lot of aspects which, honestly, it just shows to Isayama's genius and the things that he looked for inspiration to create this entire narrative. Let's keep it real. This is, yeah, we get the anime week after week or whatnot, but this took years upon years of this man crafting his manga alone in his room, month after month, giving us chapters, setting all of this together. Isayama is truly a genius that really looked for some crazy stuff, some outlandish stuff for influence, and that's how he created the narrative that we have today. The basement was like the forbidden tree of knowledge. You could argue that. You could argue that literally the tree that Eren has ultimately become at the end of the Attack on Titan is the tree of knowledge, which was the same tree that the founder Ymir, she went into the tree of knowledge that gave her that. There's a lot of aspects in there, but 110%, which again is a very fascinating thing, whether, especially if you are religious, I think that would be something of interest for you to look at. To actually just, well, okay, you read the Bible, right? Take a peek at this. What do you think? Where do you see any comparisons? Do you get anything out of this? And for life in general, there's a lot to examine there, and I gotta give props to Isayama for doing that, because so much of shonen, because Attack on Titan is technically a shonen manga, shonen anime, so much of shonen will constantly give you stuff like biblical aspects of like Jesus or stuff like that, you know what I'm saying, Yashawa, where Naruto walked on water, or he healed people, you know, all of that stuff. They'll give you those aspects, but nobody really will dare to go into the aspects of like, what about the quote-unquote darker parts of the Bible? What about the quote-unquote darker aspects of all of those stories or whatnot, of like Lucifer and things like that? At best, they'll just give you like, oh, this is a bad guy. Yeah, he's Lucifer. Look, he's a demon with wings, blah, blah, blah. But to really expand it and give you this in-depth look in the form of the narrative, because it's not like it, you know, pulls you out of the immersion that you have with the story and whatnot. It's all in there. It's all embedded very deeply in there, but it's giving you the tale of, to a certain degree, Lucifer in the form of Attack on Titan, without it just being like, oh, look, he's an evil dragon or an evil demon, whatever. Shout outs to Isayama for being able to accomplish that. Shout outs to the publishers that allowed him to tell that story. Many publishers are not gonna, they're just not going to allow, like, you think they're gonna allow something like that in a show? They're just not. They're not. These are things that they would prefer to keep it, because, again, it partially makes, at the very least, a large group of people look at this character that is clearly influenced by Lucifer as a hero. And they, absolutely, why would they want, you know what I'm saying? So it's a very, very fascinating tale. And in general, this finale, when I left it, I'm not going to lie, I felt very sad. I'll be honest with you. I felt very sad for so many different reasons. You know, we got that what if scenario that in a different timeline, essentially Eren and Mikasa ran off and they lived, you know, Eren's final days out in like a remote, quiet place. That had me depressed. Of like, you know, that's the what if scenario. Especially if you lost people or whatnot and you can recognize them, like, man, you know, you always want that happy ending. You know what I'm saying? And even then, it was like, it's as if Eren technically never really had a happy ending for the most part in store for him, at the very least of what the confines of the story tries to tell and the confines of fate or whatnot, because Eren been through some shit, you know, from day one. Between his conversation with Armin, which I ain't gonna lie, they definitely baited Fujoshi's in there. I saw some people on my timeline saying, I thought Eren and Armin were gonna kill. I was like, please, no, just stop. Yo, relax on that. Pause. But their conversation or whatnot, and understanding that this entire fight that they had with Eren, they already had spoke with Eren, and Eren already told them, like, yo, dog, I'm a good guy, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing the best that I can. I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot that's just trying to save everybody, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I gotta wipe your memory so you don't know this, because then you're not gonna fight me full force or whatnot. But I just want to tell y'all all that I love y'all, and yeah, I ain't gonna lie, just talking about it gets me pretty sad. Because also, you know, if you've had this attachment, you've been rocking with Attack on Titan for a number of years. You know, I was from day one with the anime. You know, I was a day one Attack on Titan anime guy. I remember very vividly uploading my first episode 1 review of Attack on Titan, and the comments just of everybody thanking me for putting them onto this. That was one of the first times where I felt like, wow, my job of reviewing shit this really paid off. I've seen a lot of people are actually checking this one out. A lot of people thanking me saying, yo, if it wasn't for your video, I wouldn't have checked this one out. I just checked it out. This was incredible. So it brings me back to, the decade-long journey of being with Attack on Titan. I was a little bit even before that with Attack on Titan because I was reading the manga when it was coming out in the West, and the manga months before the anime, we had Volume 1. And I remember I was at a doctor's appointment reading Volume 1 of Attack on Titan and thinking, this shit is gas. And I had even recorded a review that I never released of the manga before the anime came out. I wish I would have, because then I could have had a little bragging rights, like, yo, I was really on. Look, I got the review for proof, but sadly, I never uploaded it. So, you have that bond of a decade plus with these characters. On top of that I was incrementally every month getting a dose of Attack on Titan. On top of that, having to be very critical and analytical of Attack on Titan every month. So there's a lot with me personally that I felt like a lot of emotion saying goodbye to this. Like, even if there's a spin-off sequel, whatnot, it's this story, Eren Yeager, Mikasa Ackerman, Levi Ackerman, Armin Arlet, all of these people, their story, their tale of trying to liberate themselves from the confines of what they were going through in Paradise or whatnot, that story is over. So no matter what happens with moving forward, their tale has finished. So it gets me a bit on the sadder side of things, I'll be honest with you. Overall, the finale, I don't know, it didn't, like, I can't think of anything that was like massively different from the manga, and yet my opinion is vastly different from how I felt with the manga. My opinion when I read the manga was like, yo, this is terrible. Why is Eren acting like a simp now? Oh my god. Because one of the big enchiladas of this whole scenario was Mikasa. One of the big things that people hated was the fact that essentially the narrative turned to that the entire story was about Mikasa helping the founding Titan Ymir to break free from these thousands of years of being attached to King Fritz. And essentially it kind of felt like it went from, a fight for survival from, these Titans to a woman trying to get over a man and move forward. And if you look at it, that story and that tale is in there. It's been in there. If you look very carefully, Mikasa has been struggling with her love for Eren since she was a little girl, and we've seen it since the very beginning of what happened, where she saved him and they fought off those attackers and all of that stuff. We've seen that she's had this love for him, and slowly but surely it never really was necessarily reciprocated. Like, Eren and Mikasa was just a more modernized, think from the wolf to the dog type of scenario version of from King Fritz and Ymir, which was the worst thing ever. We know what King Fritz did to the founding Titan, the founder. He cut her tongue out, he tortured her, all sorts of stuff. He did a lot of horrible things to her, and Eren was just like an asshole. So it's like, again, from the wolf, the deadly, the worst possible that it was gonna hurt you, to the dog. That's where that part comes in. I still don't think that should have been the most focal aspect based on what the narrative has provided for the last decade plus. That was never the main point of Attack on Titan about specifically Mikasa, although it falls in line of the grandiose part of Attack on Titan of this fight for freedom. Whether it be fighting for freedom from the Titans that are surrounding Paradise, fighting for freedom from Marley, fighting for freedom of Ymir being encaged by her love and devotion to this king all those years ago. Mikasa getting over this guy that, unfortunately, as much as she loved him, it was never going to be because he just had a different path than her. I feel like that being the ending thing, I think the anime, it doesn't make it the central focal point the way the manga did, because in essence, yes, that story is told in the finale, and we get that Ymir basically lets things be because she came to grips with what happened, and she came to grips to let go of King Fritz, which ultimately in turn allowed Mikasa to do what needed to be done, because realistically this fight didn't even need to happen if they would have just coordinated, let's just kill Eren and call it a day. Mikasa and Armin did everything they possibly could. We don't want our friend to die. Just in the midst of it all, I feel like because the anime gives you so much at once, it didn't feel like the way the manga felt, where it was just like, oh, so that's the point of Attack on Titan? No, it falls in line with everything else in Attack on Titan of fighting for freedom and what it means to be free, what it truly means to be free. And everybody's freedom came different. Armin's freedom is no longer searching for that mythical outside and no longer having to stress about his friend that is off the rails. Mikasa's freedom is no longer loving this guy that it was never really going to happen because he had a different destiny than her. Eren's freedom is, which we can't even say necessarily Eren's dead, because again, he became the tree of knowledge essentially. But his freedom is such of what happened to him. Everybody had their version of freedom. It's a shame that ultimately it still leads into the same thing of war. Like, if Eren would have wiped out everything but Paradise, it would be a different story. But because he doesn't wipe out and he leaves 20% of humanity because he pushed everybody to fight and kill him because that's the way it needed to happen and whatnot, Paradise still didn't have a chance. And I guess that's something that would get some people upset of everything Eren did, and fate, no matter what, made it that Paradise was going to go down. So even though Eren took an alternate route and wiped out billions to save his people were going to get wiped out one way or another, because in the end, once everybody built up, and you see as the flash forward of time, you're seeing the tree where Eren was resting at was, growing, and the city behind it was getting destroyed or whatnot, because it is ultimately fate for Paradise to fall. It was fate for all of that to happen. However, it'll do a re-loop where some of probably the descendants of Paradise will be, in line with what happens with dude that went inside the tree, and it'll be all over again. So it's telling you that life is a time loop essentially, and it's a lot to take in. I feel like that a lot, what I just told you, like 10 different narratives all being woven into one. But again, the essence is a fight for freedom and what freedom means to each individual person, because what freedom means to me might not necessarily be what freedom means to you. So I think the story does that very well. And just in general, criticism aside or whatnot, ultimately, and even criticisms, there's not really much to say as far as like horrible or negative or whatnot. Eren was always Eren. He put up a tough front because he needed to do what needed to be done, but this has been a plan all along from future Eren or whatnot. It's a crazy tale, a sad tale. It's sad to see it go. There will never, and I mean never, ever will there be another Attack on Titan. Attack on Titan, they claimed it many years ago, and they were very, very much so on the mark of Attack on Titan is a once-in-a-decade tale. Attack on Titan is a once-in-a-generation type of story. It picked up the mantle of what Death Note did in terms of being that you never saw it coming, and somehow it exploded and became one of the biggest things in the world type of series. And salute to Hajime Isayama for putting forth the story. So sad to see it go. We had to say goodbye to the manga a few years back. Now it's really done with the anime. I don't know what's next for the franchise. I still stick with that Kodansha sees that Attack on Titan is essentially a giant unlimited money bag. So I have no doubts that they may attempt something down the road. I just don't know what. Will it be Attack on Titan Next Generations? Will it be, I don't know. But for the story that we got, and for all the goods, all the ups and downs of this story, it's crazy to really see it go. I'm so grateful we're in the time that we're in right now. If we was 15 years ago, Attack on Titan probably doesn't get this treatment and probably has a anime only ending, and go read the manga if you want the true ending. We don't get this full-on adaptation if Studio Mappa doesn't come out and say, yo, we'll save it, because Studio Wit has been financially in some massive issues over the last few years. If we're not in the time we're in right now, where anime is so lucrative because of the licensing to multiple countries or whatnot, we don't get to this particular point where Attack on Titan has a beautifully looking, one of the highest productions or whatnot, all the way through. We don't get that if it's not that we're in this time right now. So salute to just everything happening the way it did, because it made it so that Attack on Titan was allowed to end on the note that it did, a feeling close to, at the very least, on many different levels, like, this is peak anime. It had its problems like anything else or whatnot, but salute to Attack on Titan. Attack on Titan is 110%. I was there. I seen it. One of the biggest things responsible, amongst many, but definitely one of the big pivotal series responsible for making anime mainstream globally. Attack on Titan came like a force like no other, because, prior to this, the only thing that really could go mainstream is telling a Naruto, Dragon Ball type of story, a kid with a dream, trying to be a leader, blah, blah, blah. This was something that broke the mold of, no, this is a tortured soul that is in a tortured, messed up world that is trying to save a whole bunch of tortured souls and break through and, fight for freedom. The fact that the story was allowed to be told because it will inspire many, I think the ending may, give or take, it could detract some people, but ultimately I think the story in and of itself is accept whatever comes with your fight for freedom. The ending, it'll probably still, I'm sure there's a bunch of people that don't really care for it. Where I'm at right now, I'm like, I'm not really sure why I hated it so much. I get what my reasons were. I think the anime handled it better, and just in general, Attack on Titan for the win, man. That shit was amazing. Overall, what would I give Attack on Titan as a whole? What would I give it score wise on 1 through 10? I would still say it's no less than a 9. Attack on Titan is one of the most peak stories of mainstream at that, of a very dark and real world type of tale. You know what I mean? Like, sure, there's fantastical aspects. The Titans is fantastical, and, you know, maneuvering with the 3D maneuver gear is fantastical and all that stuff. But in essence, a lot of it is like, yo, the same stuff that, I mean, look what's happening in the Middle East right now. You know what I'm saying? The fact that this story was able to be told, it was blasted off to millions upon millions of people in the mainstream. It's crazy, bro. Attack on Titan is an anomaly, 1000%, no doubt in my mind.
Thought it would have been, wish it would have been. Acting like I'm fine, it's getting harder to pretend. I said, thought you would have been, wish you would have been. Maybe I was wrong, it was me all along.